I'm Amir Adnani. I'm the founder and chairman of Uranium Royalty Corp. This is a company that we started in 2018 when uranium was at $17 a pound. And we've been at it ever since. The company is listed on the Toronto Stock Exchange and the NASDAQ market in the US. Here's a standard disclaimer statement. And let's get into some of the highlights. I think before we get into these very specific highlights, maybe just a couple of words again on where we are with this uranium market right now. I can tell you, for someone like myself who has been in the business for about 20 years in the uranium business, and some of my colleagues who have been in the business for 40 years, these are the best fundamentals that we have seen ever for uranium industry and nuclear energy. And these fundamentals are really driving the demand side of the equation, demand for uranium and nuclear reactors to generate electricity. And it just so happens, and doesn't it always happen like this, where we feel that we have enough of a commodity, and then one day we wake up and we realize, oh geez, the warehouses are empty. Literally just like that, the market has gone from years and years of being in a surplus after the nuclear accident in Japan in 2011, and after 11 years of drawing down these inventories, we've really seen a rebalancing of the market. And we've seen a market where really it's been in a supply deficit for really in over a decade, but these above ground inventories helped balance it. That's really no longer the case. Uranium prices are at $106 a pound. This is the best performing commodity out there. It has momentum, it's moving. The deficit continues to go out in time. To the end of the decade, we have a 400 million pound deficit. Out 10 years, we have over a £1 billion deficit. And so it's just not easy. And we happen to be in an environment where uranium is a very permit-intensive commodity to mine. It takes more permits to produce and mine uranium than copper and gold and nickel. And as an industry, it hasn't really been engaged in mine building over the last decade. Some deposits have been discovered, but for most of the last decade, we've been shutting down mines. There's been production curtailment. And in the last couple of weeks, we've seen companies, the big producer in the world, Kazatomprom, come out and announce that they're not going to be producing as much as they were projecting. They have issues with labor, they have issues with sulfuric acid. But even before they announced that, in December, there was interesting stats that the Kazakhs put out that showed they're exporting the majority of the uranium that they produce to Russia and China. And so we definitely have also a problem in the West, where in the West, the nuclear reactors have been heavily dependent on foreign imports of uranium from Kazakhstan, from Russia, from Uzbekistan. And now we really need to become self-sufficient. Even today, in the Financial Times, there was an article about how the US government is 100% focused on repatriating the nuclear fuel cycle from Russia and to become more self-sufficient in its nuclear fuel uranium needs. What we set up in Uranium Royalty Corp is the traditional royalty model that you've seen in the precious metal sector. By show of hands, how many of you are familiar with the royalty and streaming business model? Okay, wonderful. So I don't have to explain what the model is, except no one had attempted to do this in uranium before. We've got lots of precious metal royalty companies, Franco-Nevada, Royal Gold, Wheaton Precious, but there wasn't yet a company that was 100% pure play uranium and royalty business model. We decided to change that. And we introduced Uranium Royalty Corp to the market in 2019 is when our IPO debut was. I think we might even have some IPO shareholders in this room. Anyone in that IPO? We did that at $1.50. Oh, actually, a number of shareholders. I think we're all very happy with those. And those listed 5-year warrants that came with the IPO, those were pretty sweet. Those are tradable. And so the first mover advantage was really important here, right? Because we were able to go out there and initially consolidate what were existing royalties that had been created out there over the years by prospectors and companies that had been basically rolled up in the industry. But these royalties survive M&A transactions, and there was a secondary market available to gobble these royalties up. But because the uranium price was also so low, as I mentioned, when we started, uranium prices were $19 per pound. We decided there was a lot of upside in the underlying commodity as well. So we decided to go long the commodity in addition to having a portfolio of royalties. This is where we're slightly different than Franco-Nevada and Royal Gold. Because as you know, the precious metal companies don't own and hold physical gold. They sell it. Uranium Royalty Corp, we own today 2.5 million pounds of physical uranium that's fully paid for. So 2.5 million pounds of uranium today at $106 a pound, that's over $250 million of value. That is close to 70% of the market cap of URC. As a shareholder, I can tell you I love that. And the largest shareholder of Uranium Royalty Corp is Uranium Energy, that you know is the company that I'm the CEO of. So to have that kind of physical ownership that in a very significant way backs, as I mentioned, 70% of the market value of the company, I think is very compelling. So the rest of the portfolio, which is comprised of 20 royalties covering projects from Cigar Lake and McArthur River to exploration projects in the US and Canada, today really offer that beauty that we love about the royalties, right? Where we as a company don't have to pay a penny towards land, towards maintenance, towards production, towards exploration. We own the royalties outright, and we're sitting back and waiting for these mines to come online, and we start to collect our royalty payment. The management team of Uranium Royalty Corp are individuals that have been in uranium exploration, development, mining. So this is a uranium purpose team for a pure play royalty model, and again, benefiting from physical uranium and the first mover advantage. We've talked about the uranium price, again, the price being at a 15-year high. Many people have come to me and said, look, where is this uranium price going? I just want to, again, draw your attention to a few points. If the uranium price does what conversion and enrichment market have done, remember, uranium is part of the nuclear fuel cycle. In the nuclear fuel cycle, we have enrichment, conversion, and uranium mining. Enrichment and conversion prices are at all-time highs right now. And uranium price is a laggard to those prices. If the uranium price goes to its all-time high, that's the $140 price from 2007, which adjusted for inflation should be $200 a pound today. Except, I would argue the fundamentals today are much stronger for uranium than they were in 2007. For the most part, geopolitical risk. Russia in 2007 was a friend and a reliable supplier. Today, Russia is seen as an unreliable supplier that the West is trying to get away from. And China wasn't as aggressively trying to grow its nuclear industry back then, nor test the US geopolitical sort of premise and leadership. So I think there's a lot of geopolitical tension in the uranium market today. That's why we're seeing bipartisan support for uranium in Washington. The US is buying uranium for the government account. We're seeing these small and advanced modular reactors be built by Silicon Valley to support the needs of data centers. So we have a completely different market. There was an article in the Financial Times a few weeks ago that said we might look back 5 years from now and think that $90 uranium was like $3 barrel of oil. And this is an interesting comment, right? Because the amount of energy that uranium generates is so much more than what oil generates. Just a few barrels of uranium can generate the same amount of energy as a few 100,000 barrels of oil. That's what this commodity has going for it. That's what uranium has going for it. And I think this price is going to really reflect that. You're here for investment reasons. Here's the year-to-date chart and performance of Uranium Royalty. It is the best performing royalty company out there right now. It's up 35% year to date. It's demonstrating that in a market where there's interest in uranium, uranium is clean and green. Isn't that amazing? Uranium was in the toilet for 11 years. Now it's green and clean. Isn't that amazing? And Uranium Royalty is performing well. It's doing what we want it to do. But Uranium Royalty, even at today's price, is trading at a 50% discount to its net asset value as calculated and published by analysts. And that's a pretty attractive valuation because most gold companies trade on average around 1 to 2 times their multiple of NAV. So to be at a discount to that NAV still goes to show you that the sector still is trying to find an audience out there and interested parties. In a royalty company, you're as good as your counterparties, right? Because we don't do the work. We have 5 full-time employees. That's it. And so our work is done by these counterparties. These are the companies that do the day-to-day work on the projects that we have a royalty interest on. And so again, I think the reason why this business model is so popular with all of you in the room who put your hand up when I said if you're familiar with this is because of the simplicity of the business model. So very strong counterparties from majors to smaller companies that are tackling the high growth areas. Again, I think geopolitics matters in uranium. Our portfolio is 90% North American focused, 100% uranium. We have a royalty on the Langer Heinrich mine in Namibia, which Paladin owns and plans to restart. That's a good mine. That's a past producer. So again, there's exposure to Cigar Lake, McArthur River, the Paladin mine, and a number of the in-situ recovery projects that are planned to be restarted in the United States, the UEC being one of them. Just making sure, and these are just some of the details that are in the handouts. Come to our booth for these handouts or to uraniumroyalty.com website. We also have an interesting supply stream, a physical stream with China General Nuclear. Who's China General Nuclear? This is the biggest nuclear company in the world. Even though we're a small company that was only started 5 years ago, we went out there and we did deal with all the big boys in the industry. We signed a deal with the Chinese where we said, look, we'll buy physical uranium from you. And we locked that deal in with them a few years ago at $70 per pound. So the Chinese are selling uranium to us in the next 2 years at a fixed price of $47. We're taking delivery of $47 a pound uranium in a $106 market. That's how we're creating shareholder value. We're not taking on exploration risk, technical risk. We have the physical business, we have the physical streams, large and credible counterparties, and just a ton of optionality and upside in the exploration side of the business. No debt. This is really important. You got to be a debt-free company in a high interest rate environment. We're covered by 3 analysts, all with buy ratings on the company. Good institutional mix of shareholders. UEC, Uranium Energy, is the largest shareholder at 16%. I'm a shareholder individually. We've put our money where our mouth is. We've been shareholders of the company since 2019, 2018 when we launched it privately. You can see some of the other names in there like Sprott that you're familiar with and you've seen. Again, as I mentioned, the uranium dedicated team, individuals with their entire professional careers in the uranium sector. And really, I think to wrap it up, first and only pure play uranium royalty company in the world. Come and learn more about us at our booth. In this new bull market in uranium, there's lots of ways to play the sector. You have ETFs, you have physical companies. We're the royalty company. There's up and coming producers like UEC. And so I think just a great way to hopefully raise some awareness and tell you about what we're up to. Uraniumroyalty.com. And I'll be back at the booth if you have any questions for us. Thank you very much.